We may share this recording, we may not. I think the key principle is we just pretend like it's not there and talk as normally as we just were talking, because it was incredibly beautiful and I'd like to keep that. Yeah, anyway, so my main thing was just catching up with you, seeing what you've been up to, what you're sensing, because I think you've been kind of watching from a certain vantage point what's happening in the crypto world and seeds and everything you've been up to. So I just kind of like to see your perspective of what's happening in the Renaissance and where are the leverage points. And anything generally inspiring that you've been up to that you'd like to share. I'd love to kind of tune in there.
Did you come across my newsletter that I sent just on New Year's Day?
Oh, bloody. I opened it, I started it, and
no worries.
No, I want to read it, and I appreciate you reminding
me. Having had a very difficult sort of June and July, I then actually had an amazing end to my year in Berlin and then Costa Rica at a place called Brave Earth. Are you familiar with Brave Earth? I think you did talk to Alnor, right? I hooked you guys up. Yeah. So I was at Alnor's place, which is kind of a small eco village, you could say, of there's about 16 people that live there permanently, semi-permanently. And the land is owned by a cooperative of about 20 people, some of whom don't actually live there. And they put on the most amazing courses and retreats and so on. So the main event there was a 10-day dieta in the Shipibo tradition, so mostly alone and mostly in silence, 5 ayahuasca ceremonies across the 10 days. It was really deep work, and just feel so grateful to the medicines and the maestras, 3 amazing Shipibo women that held space, including led by Maestra Inez, who's probably in her early 70s, I think, and then her 2 daughters, Laura and Leela. And the team at Brave Earth and the land there. It's really a very special place. So hoping that you get a chance to check it out at some point if you head down to Central America.
I love life. Everything is coming together, man. The synchronicity of all these last meetings. Anyway, we were just literally talking about the need of a place to do these village incubation cohorts. But basically it's 1 to 3 months, where the first month, and this is important and you're just hinting at it, people get to show up and be selected to be part of this incubation process if they want. But before they introduce themselves to the community, they go through a rite of passage for the first month. So fasting and silence and being able to deconstruct your old identity, reconstruct a new one, and really ground it into being before you introduce yourself to the community. And then they kind of lock that in, and then you become that new culture. And then from that space, they design and dream in their 2030 village. They build out the protocols, the organization structure, how they want to decide. But if they come from that space and connection, and then use that energy to then inform the structures that they build and how they coordinate, I think we'll just leapfrog against anything we're doing now. Open source that. So what we're doing with this Regen Village incubator is taking 12 projects that are diverse. So for example, one apartment building in San Francisco, take it, co-own it, and then make it like a village model. And then they're working together to meet their needs as an apartment building. Do the same thing with degraded farmland and regenerating it and turning it into a market garden. Do the same thing with a neighborhood. All the towns across Spain and Europe and the US that are getting abandoned, let's take them back over. The resorts and hotels that have gone under during the pandemic, what happens if we have these co-owned places? There's so much opportunity to take existing infrastructure and then regenerate it. We just need the social models and kind of the software that helps people coordinate, raise capital, pool the resources together. So that's kind of what we're talking. Well, it's not kind of, it's what we're doing right now. We built a template to help people go through that process of pooling all their resources, designing their initial organization structure, and just getting started, and overcoming that hurdle that most groups kind of falter from. They come together yes, let's organize differently. For the first year, they talk about governance and how to decide, and get stuck with all the meta questions that they don't end up moving forward. So I think our role is to provide, basic templates to be look, these are some of the best practices. It helps you get going, and then you can kind of get the wheels turning before you, start running into all those questions. But either way, launching it out of, Brave Earth and doing something like that, anyway.
Yeah, they had like a month-long kind of residency there in August actually. So I imagine this is they would be interested in this kind of thing, or something of those timescales even. Something also that might be interesting is that they have a sister project with Fuerza de Amor, which is working in the local area or in the bioregion to improve the lives of the people there and the health of the land and the soil. And that's an important part of their work. So I wonder whether that could be weaved in somehow as well.
So this is clearly why we're talking. This is perfect.
But I did just generally I find them of like the highest integrity and like the people that are really just true to their word, don't give or take any bullshit.
Well, this is so I think what would be so important for Web3, our revolution, the whole turning that's happening in the world right now, is if the people who are designing all the protocols and informing the information layer we're building right now are doing it from a space of deep connection with source and truth. So, coming into these villages, creating healthy containers, because right now we have so many people acting out of all sorts of crazy traumas, all of us, every one of us. And we're projecting all of that onto the tools we're building and projecting that worldview. And all we're doing is kind of like amplifying and continuing the story. The irony of Web3 is like so much of it is it literally just built the 2008 financial collapse on a blockchain and made it faster and quicker. It's like, guys, so I think that system, and I feel like one of the high leverage points of shifting it is bringing people into a real community and having these transformation processes first, and then like from that space, building the tools.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. I heard great things about MCon, which is the M kind of stands for Meta Cartel. It's kind of like a group of like OG builders in the Ethereum space that are by and large disinterested in profit and like much more interested in coordination failure as a frame, and just like how can we use these tools to slay Moloch, if you know this meme. It's like this god of coordination failure, and
or life and death. So life extension is slaying Moloch, and another commonly used term. But I think it's interesting because it talks about the bifurcation of humanity. One group slaying Moloch through artificial implementations, like gene editing with CRISPR. Another group slaying Moloch through enhancing our natural DNA, which is, having a relationship with the food that we're eating and growing so that it's more nourishing for us, so that our cells regenerate more effectively. So I think that might actually see humanity separating with, our values and how we go about slaying Moloch,
Interesting. Could be. But the reason that came up is that I just heard great things about MCon. It was the first time, at least in a couple of years, that people just been able to gather, that community being able to gather in person. I think there were like 300 people. I think, what was it, in Colorado, I think. And
when was this?
It just say again.
When was it?
Probably 3 or 4 months ago. And I was teaching a course in collaboration with DAO House at the time called How to DAO. And a lot of the DAO House guys went. Sadly, I didn't make it myself, but I felt the vibe of just like how much it has sort of like up leveled their how they work together to just be together in person, including a bunch of people that were just meeting in person for the first time. So I'm really with you. I don't think there's any any alternative really to or any substitution to actually meeting in person, and like meeting, not just meeting, but actually meeting and doing some work, whether it's like meditation or plant medicine or whatever else that you like, even better.
And village building, I think it'd be really cool to gather physically together and do a mix between festival, education, and literally building the foundations for a new village we're setting up. Whether that's convening on a neighborhood and knocking down fences and growing a permaculture garden that connects all the houses, if that's what we're doing, or going to an apartment building and helping retrofit it to be more green and up-leveling it, or going to a degraded farmland and turning it into an eco village, whatever. But I think that would be really cool. Is coming
so
together.
That actually so after the Dieta, I was traveling around Costa Rica for a week, and then I went back to Brave Earth for a men's retreat. which was based around 3 letters. Actually, we were asked to bring a letter that we had written ourselves about reflecting on our relationship to the feminine, and then halfway through the week, we read out a letter that we had been told to bring from a woman in our lives with their perspective on our relationship to the feminine. And then in the last third of the week, we wrote another letter, like kind of integrating, well, based on sort of like what we had learned from the activities in the week, and hearing that midweek letter. Very powerful format. And some people ask their mum, some people ask their sisters, some people ask partners, some people ask ex-partners. Some of the letters from ex-partners were brutal, I have to say, but it was like, it was all good learning. Anyway, and then after that, I went to Portugal for Primal Gathering, which is a reforestation gathering. So this was 60 people gathering in what's currently quite a scrubby piece of land a couple of hours south of Lisbon, that's just been taken over by like a kind of co-op of about 10 young people that sort of put together some money to buy this former poultry farm, but it's like decent, like a good amount of land and like some buildings on site that can be converted. And 60 of us were there for 3 days planting trees, and it was amazing fun. And we paid for the privilege, and it wasn't cheap either. It was like 200-300 euros. There's a particular kind of person that will pay 300 euros to plant trees, when knowing that other people are actually being paid to plant trees and so on. But it was just such an amazing crew of people that like really see that it's, this is an activity that can be an absolute joy. What better way to spend one's time than healing the earth and knowing that we're planting trees that they're not going to be mature for 10, maybe 20 years, but like, so it's some of the people.
I believe in reincarnation, so I've hacked that. I could still be selfish and think about future generations, because I'll do this.
right. Well, and some people were a bit older than us there, and there's a very good chance that they won't be around to even see these trees mature. But it was a great collection. So I've had recent experience anyway of this kind of thing, of people coming together to actually transform land, a little bit less than village scale, but it was certainly the same kind of idea. And I'm sure you and Nicole, the founder of Primal Gathering, would get on really well. Maybe that's an introduction that we can
Nicole who?
Nicole Anna Maria Boschi is her name.
Okay. I don't know her yet.
I wouldn't suppose that you've come across each other before, but
100% yes. So what Phoebe and I were just in was this Regen Civics incubator thing we're talking about, which is essentially, I think our role is to bring all the existing tools and processes just together and weave them in and help groups actually do it. So for example, Hypha DAO is one tool set that villages could use, but so is DAO House. So is, there's a bunch of them. I think it'd be really great for Regen Civics to just work with them. And a village comes in, they're like, hey, we want to coordinate, or hey, I want to be part of a village. And we're the one that kind of like fields them. And we have a field guide of what projects to work with, a process. We're running cohorts where we're helping villages like work together in groups to go through the process together, open sourcing the education, just being very practical and getting this renaissance underway. I think I'm kind of itching for it. I've been on the computer too much. Real intangible here.
So, I mean, and then like if I'm loving life here in the southwest of the UK in Totnes, which is where Phoebe is now as well. But I know land here is just extremely expensive. So like that's what are you thinking in that regard? Like, are you thinking there might be possibilities to kind of raise significant sums of capital to do it in kind of Western countries, or are we thinking that this would
not
happen
necessary? We already have
elsewhere
projects
in the world, or would it happen with kind of existing projects? Or, just keen to understand that a bit more.
Both. There's a lot of existing projects that are already underway. Examples like Brave Earth that I think we could weave in and help them raise capital to expand. The key is we're just doing a diversity project. So we already have a ton. We have some we have an incredible, beautiful, high-end luxury project that's going to be in the Azores. and they're super aligned. They're doing it geometrically aligned. Like they got the land gifted to them because of all these synchronicities. And the old lady who was super rich is like, wouldn't sell it to anyone, but heard the vision of what they wanted to do with the land and gifted it to, anyway, beautiful story. So it's like high-end projects like that, all the way to, again, an apartment building in San Francisco, to a little farmer co-op in Turkey, because Turkey's lira is crashing, and there's actually a government project that they want to do crypto and asset-backed tokens, and to actually do hemp cultivation and CBD cultivation projects with that. So that we're actually talking to the Ministry of Agriculture in Turkey to do a hemp project and do that regen civics, bringing in hemp, having the community own it through a token and govern it together, like demonstrate that project. So we want to do it across the diversity of regenerative civics, you know, kind of show and demonstrate how we could take this new coordination technology and apply it practically to fuel this renaissance. You know, everything up until now has been very, you know, speculative and weird. It'd be really great if we just got super practical, you know.
From my interest, the apartment block, what's the deal with that? There's some, like, who owns the apartment block, and like
so we'll make all the details on it. I keep mentioning him, I don't know if I should because all these are recorded. So but an incredible human, really close with Buckminster Fuller, for example, is super aligned on that side. And he owns the building, and he wants to do really creative and fun stuff with it. So he's fully bought. He's a Renaissance leader himself, fully bought in. And that we have a lot of projects like that already, that I don't think we need to like crowdfund to buy land so much as we already have land, and that's going to be a contribution from one of the parties, and they'll get tokens for it. The raising capital is to give an initial treasury for the project to steward, to, you know, run the project, do what you need to do.
So and so maybe,
but then it will be those asset-backed tokens. That's the other big thing that I think is huge and you might appreciate. So we go into a bear market, there's a lot of capital looking for somewhere safe to land. You know, we'll launch projects that the token is backed by the land. So we could do a Haifa DAO LLC, and there's a few other structures across the globe where the organization owns the land itself and all the assets that the token bought. So that provides the base floor for the token. All right. But the market value of the token could be whatever the utility for that token is. So you could have a token that's a daily stay. So the base floor is $5, but a daily rate is $20. And that's fluctuating as the project, you know, adds more value and more people want to spend more money to stay there, et cetera. So I think that could be a very interesting, you know, foundational game dynamic.
And how maybe a word, if you will, on seeds and the kind of original seeds token, and like where you feel that seeds is in its journey, because I haven't really been keeping up with it, but I know that there was some I know there was a big discussion around, like, which I interpreted as like, oh shit, we've given out basically way too many seeds for projects, for campaigns that like aren't that legit, and we need to fix this. So you and others, if I saw correctly, like suggested a fork that would kind of like freeze those campaign funds, which I thought was like a reasonable solution. I'm not totally clear like what then happened to that proposal, whether that's still kind of like on the cards, or whether that's now that's something else has been decided.
All right, yeah, we're all growing, working through our traumas and being weird. I'm going to own something here and say I was acting out of a little bit of a trauma and probably a little bit burnt out, to be frank, which is also a new proposal I think Seeds needs to adopt, is this concept of seasons, so working blocks. So you don't have this always on mentality to do governance, for example, within a 3-month period. Let's talk about governance all year. It's not good. Let's do a 3-month period where we come together, say what needs to change, make a vote, make a change, take a break for 9 months, you know. So anyway, that needs to happen. So when I was talking about like doing a relaunch, I think I was exaggerating the need, and probably biasing just towards this fresh start concept that I think it feels good to have that. But I was totally discounting the drama that it would cause and the headache and how difficult it would be. And also the perceived benefit, I think far was in excess of the real benefit that would have happened. For example, we still have like 34% And we started with 35% of the total seeds in the campaign account. We've given out like 1.5% or something in total. So it's like, okay. And I think like 80% of those were great, probably even more. And even the projects that were selling seeds, like whatever, they're really community-based. They're still doing beautiful things. I'm glad they're getting money. It's not like they're just crazy scammers. Like everyone's beautiful. Like, yes, they're selling them. Maybe they shouldn't have, but that's stupid. So I think I was focusing too much on the token value and price and kind of made a big deal about it. In hindsight, I think what needed to happen is not to be running campaigns all the time, to stop that. We've done that. That proposal passed, and actually, as of now, the campaigns are done. We could do invite campaigns, but those are restricted by an escrow account. I also think we needed something like the Seeds Commons, which is also just formed, where it's a group of people who are stewarding the seed cells. So it's not just Hypha anymore. And then they can channel funds towards a variety of organizations. So now when someone goes to buy seeds from joinseeds.earth, now they know that money is going into this collectively managed pool, and that's used to fund the Renaissance. So it's kind of like a donation,
and that's
give to a cause.
And that's actual dollars, right? There's kind of like, or the fiat, or
maybe it would all be in crypto, but it would be in more liquid crypto that's intended to sell for fiat. So we would always take, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. So I think that continues to happen, but we needed there to be more legitimacy in that sale, and I think that's where the Seeds Commons comes in. So that structure needed to be there. Something else that's really interesting for the Seeds token is all the villages are launching. I'm talking about the village token. Their payment token, I think, still could be Seeds. Each village is a region within the Seeds economy. So they're all kind of working together within the same economic system, which is Seeds. So this supports, growing seeds as an economic base. And also each village currency could use rainbow seeds. It's this new protocol we've been putting forward, where every rainbow seed is backed by a seed. So as rainbow seed demand grows, and a rainbow seed, we call it that, but every village is going to have their own name. So a rainbow seed is a protocol, but each village could have, food token or this community's currency or whatever. They call it what they want. But that community currency could be flat or stable. They could choose to have it pegged to the dollar and have it backed by their own treasury, or they could choose to have it pegged to dollar minus inflation and have this thing called a constant currency, which I think a lot of groups are excited about. But then this token is backed by both the project's treasury, which they're raising through this crowdfund, and seeds, which the seeds community could issue, or they'd have to buy them to back it by seeds. So we have all these rainbow seeds in circulation. People are using it, and they're getting this constant currency benefit today. Why seeds is still dynamic and all over the place, right? Okay, so now they have their community currency that's backed by seeds. How does it all come back into seeds? Is that seeds itself, one, could increase in demand as more rainbow seeds are brought out there, because they all need to be backed one by seeds, right? So the more rainbow seeds are, in circulation and growing, the more seeds have to be taken out of circulation and locked up to back them. So as rainbow seeds get adoption, seeds goes up in demand, which drives up the seeds price. Okay, as the price for each seed passes the stable price of each rainbow seed, there becomes an incentive for that community to trade their currency out back to seeds. So if the market price for seeds passes $1, becomes $1.10. Now I have a token that I could get $1 value out of, or I could trade it to seeds, which is worth $1.10. So now there's an incentive to slowly move back into the seeds economy as it slowly passes the price of all the different tokens, which then depresses the seeds price a little bit as it increases supply. And it just creates this kind of, it might not, if it doesn't change demand. Anyway, that's a lot of stuff I dropped on you all at the same time. This is my thinking in seeds.
I need to read more about it, but it sounds a little bit like the Luna model. No,
no, because Luna still has two models. One that's perpetually rent seeking. So it's the governance token that collects fees from the stable tokens. I want to stay away from that two token model because I don't want there to be a renting token and a payment token.
I was just,
so anyway, sorry.
Clearly I need to read more, but I'm just the way clearly it's not a two token model, it's like an N token model, but actually,
a multiplicity of tokens.
Actually Luna is or Terra is like an N token system, because it's not just UST, there's actually there's like a GBT and like a C8, like all kinds of different national currencies that which of course are, and the way they maintain stability is that they can always, there's always a guarantee that it can be redeemed for $1 worth of Luna, which is what reminded me of this thing about, these rainbow seeds can always be redeemed for for, well, it's not $1. Yeah,
It's not $1 worth of. It's got to be both. So the constant currencies, they're not fully backed by seeds. They could be redeemed for a seed, so they're backed by seed, but they need to be backed by that project's treasury. That's the real backing. The constant currencies,
partially backed by the treasury, partially backed by seeds. Is that
they're fully backed by the treasury,
fully backed by the treasury,
additionally backed by seeds. So seeds is like additional on top of it, which is between those two actually is how they can do anti-inflation currencies, because the seeds is appreciating faster than inflation is going down, which was very likely. Then you could pay off inflation, and you can have these appreciating, which we're calling constant currencies. So we can do some cool mechanisms there. But yeah, maybe projects want to keep their rainbow tokens forever, fine. But there is a mechanism in seeds to also come back. One, if you can make a profit trading your tokens back to seeds, cool. Two, using seeds is a contribution within the seeds economy. So if your village is transacting in seeds more, that's a higher contribution. You could earn more seeds from the harvest. So there's an incentive to move your economic activity within the seeds model itself, rather than in your rainbow, own circular economy.
Cool. I'll definitely read more about this. And
it's a lot. But
I like the direction it's going from the sounds of things. And then so are we back to the kind of private sale, like kind of ladder price, where the price of seeds is in the private sale is increasing slowly over time?
To be honest, I don't know, because I haven't been really active in the Seeds Commons conversations. And it's up to that council, and I'm not part of that council, to decide what that protocol will be. I believe, and don't quote me, that they are going to follow that same pricing model and just keep it going. There was a lot of pushback to do a relaunch, and again, I don't think it's actually would be really worth it. I think it's a cool story, and I still would feel a little bit of a loss if we didn't have this like big rally where the whole community is like, yeah, we get to relaunch, and we just there's a lot of energy. Instead it was like, whoa, what the heck's going on, and I was like,
maybe at some point it will happen, maybe it's just that now wasn't the right time. But okay, so that's so the answer is you don't totally know, but you think it's going to continue there. And so
well, we made the changes we thought were needed to be made in the governance side. So we patched up this idea they can come and just take a campaign, get paid directly, and then do whatever you want.
That certainly seems
so we got rid of that model, and we added the commons, which is going to be a little bit more thorough in managing the fund going forward. I think that's great. And we're building the technology right now so that every citizen actually gets to pick the budget for the commons. So that's what we really want, is that we have these roundtables each season. All the projects come together, they pitch what they want to bring for the next season. The citizens watch it, and they basically vote by establishing a budget where they think all the commons funds should go to all those projects. So then we crowd fund our budget, it comes together, and then the projects get funded and they do what they need to do.
Yeah,
so I think that would be fun to go forward, and that will bring more legitimacy to where your funds are going when you're buying seeds. Okay, I buy seeds, that fund goes to here, and then we crowd fund and we crowd select where that money goes to serve our open source movement. Cool. Like that's what we're here, and that's what this token's for. If we succeed at building a new economy, then this token's also a currency. Cool. Now I could buy food with it, So I think we're trying to stay out of the hype cycle of the rest of crypto and be like a little bit more grounded and simple in that sense.
And then of course, something that we were both quite excited about at some point, that kind of didn't work out, like in connection with the campaign funding is my take, was the idea of having seeds on one or more decentralized exchanges, which could, at the very least, like make the process by which people want to sell seeds, for people that want to sell seeds, make it kind of just easier and straightforward than needing to like find an individual buyer. And I'm wondering where what your thoughts are on that, and if that's because I know there was also the idea of like some kind of more some kind of proper like peer-to-peer exchange, and so what's the state of various mechanisms for swapping seeds back and forth?
The peer-to-peer, it is ready in testing. It's going production next week.
Wow,
so
nice.
That's cool. We've been working on that forever. So the peer-to-peer swaps is there. Going to other decentralized exchanges, 100%. That was necessary, but I think we're lacking our foundations. We're lacking a little bit more structure for our decentralized economy before we went out there and built a bunch of hype. Now the Seeds token, if you look at coin market cap, it's ranked 15,000. Our market cap value at 10 cents is 15 million or something. At the 1 cent that it's trading for is 1.5 billion for our circulating market cap. It's like, compared to the rest of crypto, it's absolutely nothing. And I think that's great because we didn't enter into that kind of hype. We didn't need the funding, which is great. We've kind of just eked by. We didn't get caught up with any VC funding. That's awesome. We're peer led, and we needed all that time to build our governance and economic structure and get the commons set up. So I think that foundation's in place that when we do grow, we can do it a little bit more responsibly, where it doesn't just come in with this big bubble hype cycle and a bunch of people lose money. And then those people get angry, and then you have all these haters, and then just drama, and it just burns everyone out. It's no fun.
Something that you're probably aware of to some extent is just the great progress that the Telos team are making, and that they've now released Telos EVM. Just this week they released the first Telos native DEX called Omni DEX, I think it's called. Sorry, Telos EVM native. I know there was already T swaps, which is actually kind of actually written in Telos, but are you in much touch with Douglas Horn and sort of the Telos team about the possibilities to kind of coordinate some of this stuff with them?
I have a recorded catch up with him just like this in a couple of days. So that's when I'm trying to get caught up. So a lot of stuff's been, soon. Yeah. So I haven't fully caught up. But I've been familiar with the EVM. I want to take the Omni DEX or any one of the EVM compatible DEXs and do one for regenerative projects. So when we're doing this Regen Villages, we do our own DEX, and then Seeds is the counter token. So just like every DEX token, as the DEX grows in locked value, so does the demand for their, counter token, whether that's Osmos on Cosmos is doing a great job with this. But their Osmos token, the whole value is derived from it being the counter token on this project and getting exchange fees. So we could do the same thing with Seeds on these DEXs and drive value towards Seeds that way through having this regenerative village marketplace that's been, vetted to have quality projects there too.
I would have thought that Douglas would love that kind of thing. Like Omni DEX is fine. It's pretty unremarkable, and generally I know Telos have really pushed their eco credentials. So I wouldn't be surprised if he could had EVM developers
that's a good idea. So this is exactly,
and that they could actually build the DEX in maybe by being paid in Seeds or something. But I know it's probably it's a different set of skills, right? So the current Seeds dev team, who are, I presume, only or mostly actual Telos developers. I have a sense that it would actually be better. Of course, it's possible to do a Telos native one. Of course, and the fact there's already swap.joinseeds.com, isn't there? Which is
swap seeds money.
Which is which is a
swap.seeds.money. It's our own. It's T swaps, but for Seeds. So it is this. We already have a decentralized exchange.
But it's a bit even the main T swaps, the liquidity is tiny. People I think at this point, given the Telos EVM exists, doing an EVM based DEX is a much better idea than trying to do anything with a Telos native one.
I agree.
So excited for the possibilities there. And this stuff is really fresh, as I say. The first Telos native EVM DEX only launched this week. So the idea that there could be a second kind of more eco regen flavored one, over the coming months, I think sounds like a really good net progression in the narrative of Telos. And I think Telos would probably see a value in that and may well be interested in supporting it if financially or with expertise or some other way. But so excited to hear you have a call with Douglas, and I think that's
such a good idea. I mean, ReFi is starting to blow up now and get more prominent, and what I think really needs to happen for Seeds, and Haifa is doing this right now, is it's not built on, it's compatible with. So Haifa has been building this thing we call a document graph for the last 3 years. But basically it's this middleware where this document graph, if it's compatible with a layer 1, then it comes to this document graph, and that's what all the DAOs interact with. So a DAO gets to choose what layer 1 it really wants to run on. And at that point, it's really just going to come down to speed and cost, probably. But anyway, that's what Hype has been doing. So we're just going to go integrate with different layer ones and make it so they can launch their own DAOs and blah, blah, blah. I think Seeds needs to go basically that same route. Is we house all the, the economic protocols on chain, which the best place to do that still is on Telos, but we can integrate and make it just as seamless to, use Seeds in other ecosystems, which is kind of our goal. And there's all these layer one treasuries to fund community development, to bring new applications and communities to the layer one. So we could just.
I'm very curious to understand a bit more how that works, and it might be there's
the document graph.
Yeah, but that
sure would love that.
The whole of Hypha DAO is like written in whatever. I mean, like what's the actual language called? It's called it's actually EOS lang or something, right? Like what is it?
Not at all. Anyway, the smart contracts are in C++. But again, what he's built has its own block explorer too. The document graph is its own middle layer. It's not integrated with EOSIO.
Okay, interesting. I don't fully understand this, but I'm definitely keen to understand that more. So you're saying, and the idea that like all of HyphaDAO's tools could be like, or what you're saying is that all of HyphaDAO's tools could be like relatively straightforwardly ported to, say, the EVM or to even like into the Cosmos ecosystem or something like this.
100%. So just how the internet runs. This happened with the internet layer 2 and TCP/IP. HTTP that's in the center. It's called the narrow waist. It's the center protocols that aligns with all the infrastructure, all the data centers across the globe. They integrate with TCP/IP, and then they get to integrate with all the websites, all the applications, right? So that's the same thing with us. Is layer 1 is the blockchains. Layer 2, and this is its own graph. It's called the document graph. I think it's a lame name. Maybe we call it DAO graph. Houses all the information, and it holds it on IPFS, but it holds the roles and the assignments, treasury balances, when you're moving money around, all of that happens on the document graph. Yeah. And we do that on top of Telos right now. So we'll use their blockchain. But any DAO can choose.
Presumably, the EVM just like straight up cannot run and can't understand C++ code. So presumably there is quite a lot of C++ code that is like fine if it's like kind of that, which is the in between IPFS, if you're using that as your sort of persistent storage, and the layer 1. So like my assumption
is beyond my pay grade.
I assume that there would be like a reasonable amount of work to like.
I think with Ethereum, yes.
Layer ones, but
where we've looked at it is for Polkadot and other EOSIO chains. Other EOSIO chains, super easy. Polkadot also looks to be like a month's worth of effort to build the compatibility with it. I think they've looked at other ones, but that's the only 2 we've talked about because those are the ones we're talking with layer 1s.
Cool. I definitely feel that Seeds sorry, getting Discord things pop up. Let me close that. The fact that it's as you probably know, like there's a whole bunch of like layer 1s that have really blown up over the past year. Like it just got big. So the latest hype wave is like Near and Phantom and Oasis, and I mean, I think it's still entirely possible that Telos will kind of like catch a hype wave in the next 6 to 12 months.
Even if it doesn't, it's great technology.
So typically what happens is like when the layer 1 does, then at the same time or shortly afterwards, people get interested in, okay, well, what projects are actually running on this, on this net, and people will so if and when if people discover Telos, people will then discover Seeds. But another way of saying that is it's possible, well, we can say there's pros and cons, but certainly some drawbacks, I would say, to at this point for Seeds to be on what is still a very niche layer 1, that Telos, where there hasn't been that much like interest about it. In some ways, of course, that's good. It means we can just like patiently and quietly build. But I find myself curious sometimes. Wow, what if Seeds have been building on like Polygon or something, like or one of these things that just
I'm super biased, but I look back and I say this was perfect because already there was so much wisdom and noise and energy within seeds this entire time that I don't think we missed out on a hype cycle. We didn't necessarily need more. We had as much as we could handle, and we didn't have the infrastructure to handle more. So all that we avoided was people coming in, getting hyped up, burnt out for whatever reason, and then leaving, which would have resulted in everyone else's sign of price rocketing up, dropping off, people getting pissed off.
I'd say that
so we avoided that. I think it's lucky.
But the way in which like it can be useful, and it, in some ways is like a concern of mine with seeds, is that like when you're part of like a very active and thriving ecosystem, the development, in my experience, typically becomes more iterative. It's like, okay, let's just build this like small thing to help us hook in with ClimaDAO. And whereas instead what's happened is like, instead of being part of this like complex and thriving ecosystem on the mainland continent, instead seeds has been like kind of like separately evolving on this like small island like off the continent, like very probably evolving some fucking some amazing wings and beak and all the rest of it. But like it's different, it's different to them being part of something that by necessity and by desire in other ways, like you're just building like the next thing rather than like this big vision. And yeah.
So I'll respond super quick because I think it's the three horizons is another way of framing this. But another way of framing it is revolution versus renaissance. But you mentioned it, iterative approaches. So if you're part of like the mass, I guess, you're the gravity, the center of gravity there is more towards the status quo than if you're off doing something random. Now that's foreign good. The status quo is what's going to probably perpetuate. The highest odds of that are happening. So, greatest chance potential is to do that, which is why that reinforces itself and everyone knows the story. But if you're looking for like Renaissance change and like systemic, deep cultural change, I think you do need to evolve away from the norm, work it out,
I think this is a great meme, Reiki. I think I can imagine, I would love, like, if there was an image or even a video of like the kind of like EVM continent that is and then separately there's
I don't want to do that because that's this us versus them mentality, but I think it does need to merge in my sense, because they're solar punk, they're ReFi, it's all growing in the EVM world too. So I don't want to have any like,
I mean the point really is now is like we're now at the point where like there are bridges are being built, like, and actually these two wildly different ecosystems in a way can like come into contact with one another. But I think it's
well, that's also where I'm bullish Telos, because free and instant. If we bridge and everything becomes easy to move different, to different ecosystems.
I mean, I think like there are now probably I think the reason to Telos has not had has not had a great like 3 months. And I think the reason for that is that there's the marketplace of layer ones that are basically also free and instant is like
it's blowing up,
there's now like a dozen decent layer one solutions that have very good eco credentials that like have like near 1 second finality and so on. So I think Telos is still like at par with them, but this like the idea that like it's not, I wouldn't say it's unique at this point. And
I want to shift framing. This is what I'd love to do with you if we're coming together to play. It's collaboration. So all of these layer ones, how do we actually bring them in and collaborate? We chose Telos, and I hate this fucking tribalism, man. It's difficult. We chose Telos because we needed technology. Like Telos isn't an identity. Telos is an incredible community, don't get me wrong, but like we're here to build a renaissance. It's going to take all of our communities working together to something bigger, and we need to continue to reframe that something bigger and actually collaborate. I keep seeing us getting pulled back down into competition. Everyone who wants to, be part of Seeds and Hypha or whatever, always, who's your competitors? Like, it's like, no, motherfucker, our competitor is capitalism. Sorry, I'm getting angry and excited, and these are our collaborators. We need to be collaborating. We can't keep, fighting each other to save humanity. It's ridiculous.
The most practical idea I think we've touched on that. It's important perspective. I think the most practical idea that we've spoken about today that really fits with that is this idea of a Regen DEX, which could well be on like Telos EVM, or maybe it's somewhere else. You know, like I know it could, like I know probably the Regen network guys would have an opinion on this as well. Like maybe they would.
I talked to them forever ago, but they didn't really move on that. There's way too much coordination hurdles, and it never happened. And then I brought it up again, and it didn't happen. So I think we probably have the biggest chance potential doing it with the Telos guys and talking to them and seeing if they want to do a Regen branded one and bring more energy and value to Telos. Cool.
This is something that I would at the very least be like up for and interested.
I want to come to Cosmos too.
Some kind of conversation on like let's just hook in all the like the Regen flavored projects that already have tokens and be like, hey guys, like, so Regen DEX, like, is someone already doing this? Like, if not, why the fuck not? Like, let's make this happen, because then it has this flavor of anyone that comes to that DEX is going to be at the very least exposed to all of the other tokens and get a strong idea that, okay, this is a thing now. This whole ReFi thing is like, it's happening. So
we could have two main flavors too of that DEX. Is one, the project and the infrastructure tokens, currencies and all the like, but two, then land and asset-backed tokens that are representing regenerative village projects across the globe, regenerative civics projects. And then I think there's actually a third, which is getting all into the carbon credits and mangrove backed NFTs and all that stuff that is really interesting. So, experimental. So I think that's kind of the three flavors of this DEX, is kind of the hub for this regenerative, economy to start taking a little bit of roots. So yeah, I think this needs to be cross-chain. I think Cosmos is actually leading in that story, and I really want USIO and Cosmos to integrate too. And there's already a couple groups working on that bridge. So maybe we launch this on Cosmos and do it with.
What did you say about USIO Cosmos bridge? That's in
there's
the work.
Two different groups working on that to make USIO IBC compatible. So that it just becomes another IBC chain.
That would be amazing.
And then I think those two ecosystems just merge. That's kind of what I'm banking on is I'm seeing us complete allies with Cosmos already. And I'm saying, cool, we're going to merge here soon.
I mean, another route is that there's also a work afoot or there's various groups working on bridges between Ethereum and other EVM compatible chains and Cosmos. So another option is to go Telos to Telos EVM and then to Cosmos, like via the Ethereum world. But
sure.
This on that basis, the DEX being built on Cosmos sounds okay for seeds. Like wouldn't exclude seeds, like at least in the near future.
If we are building a DEX on that, then we can have a token on that. We can have the commons. We have a little bit of centralization. The commons could be in control of the multi-sig that manages the wallet for when you bring seeds from, seeds to Cosmos and back and forth. So they can control the multi-sig on both sides. So that's what's cool about having the commons and that security layer is all these, multi-sig contracts that you might need to do different bridges can all be governed by the same security layer that you're governing your whole protocol with. So anyway, so we can build bridges to every platform we want to just by doing that, where you have two accounts on each side governed by the commons. It's a very simple thing. Send tokens here, you get tokens there.
My feelings are probably the most viable or likely options at this point are either like something on Telos EVM or on Regen Network. I would be surprised if Regen Network don't already have plans for some kind of DEX.
They do have an asset marketplace. We talked to them about launching a token on Regen Network, and they're like, "Oh, that's really difficult to do."
The idea is like soon you won't need to launch it. It's just about bridging it, right, via IBC or like some other mean. So I'm assuming that piece just gets solved soon. So it's like
that's what I'm banking on too. I'm just like
bring seeds like over to Cosmos and Regen Network, like no problem. And then it's just and that could, probably any such DEX would be a fork of something that already exists. I presume that the Osmosis code is open source, so like
that's what I was just thinking.
They could if it's in the Cosmos world, it could be a fork of Osmosis running on Regen Network's chain. Or if it's in the EVM world, it can be a fork of Uniswap or SushiSwap or whatever, like running on Telos EVM. So like this all sounds like very doable. You know, it's like not like you need competent developers, but you like, and the car is already built. It's not like we need to.
Well, and as you pointed out, I think we already have the interested parties and the developers. We do. Well, we can approach the Telos Foundation for doing it on Telos, and we'll approach Regen by doing it on Cosmos.
It's to go to Telos, like the Telos team, and say, hey, we'd like your help, kind of just basically kind of deploying and reskinning something that already exists is like a very different thing to saying, hey, we want you to build us a DEX from scratch. And like
exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
And just putting a different flavor on it. That's actually how we launched our seed swap. It was a fork of T swaps, kind of remixed to our needs. Yeah.
So yeah, feeling very excited about it. I mean, then in terms of seeds, there are then it re-raises some questions around how any seeds liquidity relates to the kind of private sale ladder, which of course caused some confusion last time, but I think that's soluble. And
I mean, if we needed to, the liquidity at a penny price and the asset's locked, like a couple $100 would drive it up to 10 cents. It's just literally no one's buying because we're not marketing it at all. And these are unknown DEXs. Like we didn't do any, everyone acts like the market was real and it was a real price, but you go to the market and you're like, oh, okay, it dropped from 5 cents to a penny because this guy sold $40 worth of seeds. Like, it's a penny, and CoinGecko was pulling that.
I certainly think that's a very important lesson. It's like, if this is going to happen again, in a way, like it should be done. We should put like serious thought on like launch and marketing and so on, and make it a big fucking deal that there's a Regen DEX out there that's connecting Regen and Klima and seeds. And like, and to be honest, it's only really been the last few months that there's probably are now enough tokens to even consider doing this. Like before, like for most of the past few years, it was only really seeds with an actual token, and it's crazy how I could even say it's frustrating in ways, like how slow things move when in so many ways it kind of ecologically we could do them moving a bit faster.
Oh gosh, man. I mean,
anyway, it's all happening at the right pace. Yeah.
Go on.
We're just saying, it's all happening at the right time and at the pace that it needs to. That's the deeper truth. Sure.
All right, so I was going to start quickly. Yes, all of my timelines, we would be living in a regenerative village by now, like 2022. Come on, like. I was putting the first white paper together in 2017, go live was like 2019. I'm like 2 years. Anyway, but what I would say is like the other thing that I'd really love to collab with you on, I know we've talked about a lot, but here's the last thing, I swear it. This is the real value I think we've been working on over the last few years, is forget about a market price. Like that's one frame of value. But the real value we've been growing is all of our foundations, our agreements. Like we figured out a constitution, put tons of energy into that, our own economic protocol, our roadmap we could agree on, communication patterns on how we actually want to communicate. Like all of this is an incredible amount of energy went into creating these foundations, which I don't think we should discount even remotely. It just was having a hard time showing. And the other thing, let me actually share with you this, because I'd love how you design maps and models, and I think we could have a lot of fun here. It was kind of like one place to give all the recipes, maps, guides, templates for the Regenerative Renaissance for large. So you can come here and find the ecosystem maps, like all the different alliances that I might be connected with, or very practical maps. Like I want to build a map for how to get your food within the Renaissance economy. So all the different local food projects and where they're all at. Let's come back to here. I'll just give you the really super high level templates for regenerative action. And this is actually the Regen Civics incubator that we were supposed to talk about. So here's a template that actually goes through like crowdfunding and starting up your due, and some templates for the village DAO and et cetera, to actually go through the process of setting up a regenerative village and how you might be able to do that, and all the tools and links to them all.
Nice.
So you can come. So this is what we're working on, and I'd love to bring you into this. But let me just keep doing.
Who's we?
The Regen Civics. Let me just show you here. So kind of a lot. So there's a bunch of different organizations that are coming together that have allied to do this. There's maybe like 8 different people that I think we're probably calling like the core team. We're doing this very DAO style. We're inviting the people that we feel are right, that align with the vision. They show up, whoever sticks to that gravity are part of the core team. So we're putting that together now. Who I was just on the phone with is Phoebe. Do you know Lucian Tarnowski?
Yeah.
Super integrated, incredible human. And who else was I just on with? Franz Joseph Allmeyer. Do you know him? So he's bringing a lot of projects in Central America. He's working with a municipality in Liechtenstein that wants to do one of these Regen Civics, and actually so municipality giving voice to their citizens. And so what does it look like as they start evolving? They're really forward thinking in Liechtenstein. Anyway, a bunch of people like that. They're just super awesome. I'll actually send you these videos here. If you come down to here to get support, Regen Civics, there's actually some of these initial calls. Yeah, so like Analos, Lucian, Ryan, Mark. So these are some of the different people that are part of the core. And each one of these intro calls, they do the same thing kind of here, where they talk about the pieces they're bringing. All super interesting. I'd recommend if you want to play with us, because then we get to know each other really quick. Yeah, so that's a lot I shared with you. So
I'd love to dig into this a bit more if you want to send me a link.
Oh yeah, another place you'd have a lot of fun is for DAOs. Same thing. So we have a library of all these different templates, roles. As we're creating all these roles in our DAOs, cool, let's start open sourcing the library. So we're not redoing that same work every single time. We're coming up with the same roles, badges, policies, entire templates for different DAOs. Because communities don't want to come here and spend their first year, again, how do we decide and get stuck? This gets them going. And this is where I think we could have a lot of fun, is coming up with some of these templates together, because I know you've been doing that.
Nice.
Like the strategies playbook, you can come into here, so different authority patterns, just giving them fun names. The Misty Mountains is kind of like the pyramid structure. So yeah, these are different, strategies. So it's different DAOs talk about how they're achieving coordination. They're finding patterns that work. We can, open source them, bring them here, share these different patterns so we can learn together. You get it. So this is just one of these maps I'm working on. I'll stop here because I don't want to keep going on it.
Oh yeah, I'd love. Is it possible to send me the link to this?
Yeah, and I'll send you a thing so you can also be a co-creator. Okay, so how this works is we're open sourcing who contributes to it. We're gonna have we can retroactively, but going forward, we'd like it that is if you're making contributions, then you're getting rewarded for it. So the Seeds Commons is figuring out kind of a reward mechanism to reward all the people who are contributing to our open source library here. And then curators, which are the ones that can accept edits, and they're the ones that have master control over the whole thing. Those are badges in the Seeds Common do. So the community kind of says who's curating it. And they're the ones that are kind of setting the narrative and voice for how this guide is kept. But really, this is where I think Seeds can start having kind of a center of gravity, is we can start bringing all the resources and information and guides and templates and tools to help communities all kind of into one place and give them the tools that they need. And again, get super practical on how we're helping people on the ground do regenerative action and, move the needle forward.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, I'd love to check that out more. I will, with your permission, loop you into conversations about a Regen DEX with contacts that I have at some other Regen projects. I mean, I'm sure you have some as well, but let's see if we can see. It's just get some idea of what if other people have already been thinking about this, and yeah, see what we can inspire there. And yeah, it's so great to check in and catch up with you again, brother, and I'm looking forward to more conversations over the rest of 2022 to make this Renaissance a reality.
Last piece before we go, 2 last pieces. One, I sent you an invite to the app book, so you can be an editor. 2, Haifa just did a reset. This was pretty cool. So we did a redistribution of Haifa, trying to more macroly look back and redistribute it. We put it into a collective sale, so there's no liquid Haifa anymore. So now as we enter exchanges, we'll do it together. We reset voice, so everyone went down to 5,000 voice, which is basically a full reset. So I think it might be a good time to actually form this DeFi circle we were talking about within Haifa, that its role. And there's a couple other people who want to be part of this, but no one wants to be full-time. And I don't think you do either. So I think if we have 5 people at 20% or whatever, we can have a fully functioning circle here. That are going out there for both seeds and Haifa and working on, you know, interoperability, bringing it to new DEXs and kind of weaving the ecosystem together. And then you can learn a little bit more about the document graph and our role there and have some fun kind of building that. Plus, I just personally, I'd love to build with you and bring in Haifa. So,
Nice. Well,
and you're kind of doing all this stuff. So I think you need to be learning some Haifa too, you know?
Yeah, that means a lot to hear. And yeah, so I'll definitely check back in with Haifa and see what the possibilities are there as well. I mean, my instinct is always to like do stuff first and then like trust that if it's useful, then like
if that's your instinct, that's really powerful in DAO culture, you know.
But yeah, I'll certainly keep it in mind at this point, like if, you know, in getting these conversations going with these other projects and so on. Yeah,
well, that's what you did last time, so maybe we'll just do a quest. We'll do a general quest, and then anyway, we'll let you run.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, exactly. That worked for me one time, but I'm certainly open to the idea of like a more committed role. I don't have actually that many other commitments in the first half of this year. So let's see.
Well, honestly, right now is the time to run with it with the DAO tools, and I think you can have a lot of fun, and it's the time, and it's really interesting. So I'd love to actually have a separate conversation getting into the document graph with you a little bit more and where we're at with the do. That could be
so where's the best? Is there somewhere I can read about that? Like the actual architecture?
Let me send you. Did you watch my latest video I did how to do a do?
Nope.
Yeah.
This is on the Seeds YouTube channel?
Yeah. So the Seeds YouTube channel should actually just probably be the last one. But here, let me send it to you just in case. There you go. I'm going to send you the one with the cicadas. If you don't like them, there's a link to it without cicadas. I love them. I mean, they help set my, you know, rhythm, and I didn't even notice they were there. But when I watched the recording, people were like, it's deafening. So,
yeah. Nice.
All right, brother, I'll let you run, but just grab another time whenever works for you, and we'll just keep running with this.
Yeah, well, you know,
for being there for 3 years or whatever. That kind of goes through the latest thinking on the do tool itself. I think you personally find it fascinating. I'd love any feedback you have for it on you know, how to design better ones or whatever.
Yeah. Likewise, you can just go to stephenreid.net/3060, how many minutes you want with me. And yeah, let's just stay in communication.
Okay, so I'll just grab a time. And could you on Telegram send me your newsletter one more time, please, so I make sure I have it?
Sure, yeah.
And you watch that, I'll read yours, and then we'll come together with better knowledge.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, have a great day. Take care.
You too. Cheers, brother.